That's pretty cool. As always, let's test sound. Darn it, where's the link? Come on, there you go. There we go. All right, so we're streaming. Hey guys, sorry for being late, about an hour later than usual in this stream, but most of you guys catch the playback, which I really do like those numbers, and I do appreciate the people that catch it live. And as always, the people that catch the playback, you guys are really like I'm honored, and just the numbers that I am getting, freaking sick. Like, I mean, just starting out, I don't really push the channel much. I don't go crazy or anything like that. So I do want to really thank you guys all for joining the streams whenever you can. You can and get the information, and or hopefully you're getting information out of it that will help you into the future. Alrighty, so please be sure to like the stream, subscribe when you can. I do appreciate everything. We're almost to 500. That's pretty cool. I'm at 490. I was at 491, so I lost somebody. Damn it. I have to do better. So as always, we'll start with an image. This one's pretty cool. There was one before this, but I didn't really like it. But this one's pretty cool. I kind of like how it's like. You guys ever think about like robots and how they really would look? You have, I think it's like Boston Dynamics or something like that. Then that they actually have robots out and like they look nothing like this. But what iteration of robotics is this? Is this like iteration 10, 12? Things like that. I think about stuff like that sometimes. But yeah, so that's a pretty cool image. As always, get the ArtStation plugin. It's like the whole new tab plugin. Probably one of the better plugins that I've liked thus far, and really, it really helps, gives you those mental breaks, especially when you're not expecting it. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about functional facades, functional facades. Really, just talking about designing your front end, putting things together. Right now, I mean, I've done most of the API work. There's some more work to do in the back end, some more work to clean things up and make it quote unquote better. Also working on the front end in terms of like, okay, how do I want things to be laid out on the screen? What do I want to actually show? And then write the code to make sure that happens. Because one of the biggest things that hit me when I was actually when I first started getting into like coding websites and doing web apps and web development, which yes, they're different things. Like web development to me is web development to me is like full stack stuff. Web design is okay, I make this website and I do all these things that get all these elements on the screen, right? That's web design. Web development is taking that web design and making it functional. So that gets into your JavaScript. That gets into your front end JavaScript code, which I'll show you this here. Your front end JavaScript code that does like all your CSS, where you have to put it, what loads when, maybe even lazy loading and things like that. But all your front end JavaScript code that makes all the elements on your page work as expected, in terms of just not just clicking on something and it brings up a .html file, but clicking on something and then it has a function to it associated with it, or an event listener, which is what JavaScript is basically, is what drives JavaScript. It's all about listening to events and listening and emitting events. That's what it is. So you have your on click, your on hover, on mouse over, and things like that. CSS, same thing to a certain extent, and that's a little bit more dumbed down. But you start having now you have it where it's you have CSS that just does so much more in general. So I mean, this is where you talk about web development, and then you have backend development. Backend development is still web development to a certain extent, because those are like your full stack people. Again, this is my opinion, guys. This is how I view all these things when I explain it to people and I talk about it. This is what I'm talking about, or this is what I mean by these what's it called? These concepts, if you will, right? So uh, this is when you go into backend development, that deals with your API calls, calling other APIs, working with code on the server, saving things to the server. So sending things to the server, retrieving things from the server, and storing things in different places and making sure everything works. Your backend development also includes things like microservices to make sure you talk to databases or talk to the right microservice to get access to maybe your orders microservice or what have you. So that's what I like when I hear all this stuff or talk and say all these different concepts in terms of like what I've learned over the years. This is kind of like how this is what this is how I crystallize it is like those three things in terms of like what encompasses a person that works on uh coding or something like that, or web coding, if you will, if it was to be an umbrella term, if you will, but in that you have web design, web development, and then that's your front end code, working with your back end code, even full stack development. And then you also have back end development. And then back end development is like, okay, this person sees the code in a different manner, and this person sees things in JSON. They see things in whatever code whatever language they're using on the back end. They see things in synchronous, asynchronous calls, and checking error mechanisms or catch mechanisms or errors, and how to handle those errors to present to always give you a successful in any way, shape, or form, so that you don't have a complete crash, or to mitigate the crashes on the back end that the front end might cause. Making sure that you have your catch statements. Again, I'm getting better with those. But this is all your front end stuff, and this is web development to me. But if I look at all this is all how to make all these different graphs for AM charts. We kind of went over that last week, in last week's stream with the code pen and looking into it. And you have this is your actual data for your different charts, but all of these things help. This is the asset allocation chart, or the chart that's in the asset allocation space or spot. I want this to be like a pie graph eventually. So I was actually looking at that, and you can do all types of stuff. In fact, I don't know why. Oh no, I know why I have that like that. Okay. And I was working on some functions to redraw a chart or redraw a div based on the div resizing. So we'll get into all that stuff. But first, we'll look at design and layout. So first thing I do when I'm actually working on front end code, I don't start coding functionality. I just don't. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't code functionality. I code design, because the design is going to drive your functionality. It's going to give you your limitations. It's going to give you your limitations / restrictions. It's going to give you also new things that you can actually do with some of the elements that are on here. So for instance, if I wanted to do like a full page, it's like, okay, now this is a full page website, and maybe now I'm brainstorming of other things that I can do on this full page. Maybe I don't want it to show the navigation. How can I hide the navigation when I press this button here and do the toggle, right? Like, how can I do that? Maybe I should even have a page that only shows certain elements and takes out the navigation, all those things, like how can I actually have that? Maybe I can have a let's do this. So for instance, now I'm thinking, okay, how can I get it to where I don't show any of the other stuff here? I just show this. I don't want any of this, or maybe I do want all of that, right? And I want it to fit to a certain size or something like that, right? Like maybe I want it to look like this on a full screen. I can have a monitor dedicated to I can have a monitor dedicated. Hold on. To look like perfect. I can have a monitor dedicated just to this actual application here. Just post it up on the screen, and I can always get portfolio updates because everything is happening live. Eventually, I can start pulling in things from, oh man, from where would I pull things in from? Pull things in from Yahoo Finance. Pull things in from, maybe the local gas station or something like that. I can build a true dashboard based on the information that I'm pulling in. Also looking at other things like, okay, well, this chart, if I have all of these different things here, what they call the legend, well, maybe I need to take the legend out because it's not fitting into all of this. And this is causing a problem in terms of the view. And I'm not going to really make it any bigger than this because this is at 100%. This is how everything looks. I want to focus on this pie chart. So let's go ahead and make that change here. There we go. And that's the asset allocation. So asset allocation, this is the code for that chart. And what we can do is hidden state properties, opacity, inner radius, legend. All right, so we're just gonna get rid of the legend here. Oh, sorry. Code in the front end like I'm doing the back end or something. That's not gonna work. Here, get out of here. Nano server view, public JS, and then fat. So usually I always have a JavaScript file, the name of the project or the the website, and that's my custom JavaScript. It's usually the last thing to load after all of the other JavaScript. I was just doing some stuff on another page. It's the last thing to load when I'm making everything. Hold on, let me stop trying to do two things at once. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really that smart sometimes. Okay, so this is all of our JavaScript. This is, to check if you're running it in Internet Explorer. And I should have an IE page. I have to do that. I have to actually design that and put it together. But as you can see, I load all of my required JS, third-party stuff. I usually get the minified version. I don't usually have to make any changes to any of these projects or anything like that. In some cases, what I'll do in terms of optimization or premature optimization in some cases is I will load these things only when I need them on certain pages. So like certain pages, I'll put like code in there or an anonymous function that just runs and says, oh, okay, if it's this page, then load this. If it's this page, then load this, or add this script tag or something like that. And then I'll have that all in the JavaScript, and then it just loads as I need it or what I need. And then I go through it from there. And I'll probably do that on this, but during my design phase, I'll load everything. The reason why you have to think about things like that and really prematurely optimize it, I mean, one, I copied a lot of the code from my other projects because I'm developing more of a standard. But the reason why you do things like that is a lot of this stuff is going to work on mobile as well. Like, you're going to have this on a phone. So, but that's kind of how like I handle my JavaScript. So in terms of, let's go into this. So as you said, we don't want the legend. So we'll just go ahead and take that out. Right. So chart.legend. It's kind of crazy. I don't know how I'm actually able to do that because I'm really reusing the names. I guess it's just like dynamic in a sense. Oh, actually, no, that's what happens. They're variables and they're not constants. So I can actually reuse them, reuse the variable names. I was thinking about like all these charts that I got are all examples. They're not real data whatsoever. You refresh this page, all this stuff is generated by what's it called, a random number generator to make all these different points for examples. But it's good to get this. So let's look at asset allocation. So one thing I'm seeing is if I want to maximize it, it doesn't reshape to this entire div. I want to fix that, and I'm thinking about a best way of doing that in terms of like measuring this div, and then when I measure the div, then it actually reruns this whole thing as a function. So I'll make this whole chart as it is as a function, or I'll make this whole chart a function in terms of just running it, when the code loads, and then I would load it at page start, and then also attach it to a function that is attached to this button here, or to this this button here, to where it'll actually load all that stuff for me as needed or when I want it. So and then redraw that chart. So let's go ahead and Control F5 is what I usually like to do. Boom, that's a lot better looking. So now we have a chart that takes up more space. Also, I probably could do things like this. If I look at this here, let me reattach this here to the right side. So I'll do things like look at this, inspect that element. And then I'll do things like I'll look at this and then I'll say the padding. I don't really like the padding of that. Okay, well I don't like the padding of that element. So what I'll do is I'll do like padding, like maybe unset. Nah, maybe what I'll probably have to like increase the size of this chart, or even I might even just take out this portion of it. So again, we're going through this and we're chopping this apart in a sense and really taking a closer look at how all this stuff looks at different sizes, uh, in different screen orientations. So if I start putting in the mobile view, if you will, here, then I can start seeing, okay, this is how it looks when it's vertical. Okay, this chart does not look that great. Maybe I'll have to redesign this chart, or maybe this is not the chart that I want to look at in this view. And you could still do things like zoom in on certain areas as well. Right, so that stuff still works. Also, I'll notice is like when I'm actually running this on a phone or something like that, you could be like low end mobile or something, and you can actually do throttling and see how this page loads um, on reload. So let's go ahead and it'll load it, take a while. So this is a great way of seeing that, hey, your site ain't shit. Like this is not going to run on a low-end mobile service. This is not the site for that. This is a site where this is not the site that runs when you've run out of data on your data plan, because it's downloading so much in terms of code. Also, let's go into network. And in this network section, we can see how everything is downloading, what's taking the longest. We can see how much time it's taking to get this done. And we can see that a lot of it, our core JS is taking up. If we do everything by size, yeah, our core.js, that script is taking up quite a bit. Our CSS, what is our core.js? What is that really? Yeah, that is core.js. I have to figure out what in the world that file actually is. And this is where you see you have tricks like lazy loading and stuff like that that are important. Yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah. So our AM charts core.js. So that's taking a while. And that's a pretty big, that's a pretty big file on a lower end mobile website. And it shows you how long it's going to take for this website to run, or for it to actually show everything fully loaded, right? And also it looks nice. I mean, I look at on the vertical here, this is a nice little table. Tables are still useful for certain content. Certain content does not do well with it being like using CSS grid or anything like that. Or grid styling. There's two different. I think there's CSS grid, and then there's something else that I don't even use, but I think it's always grid. And I always use like the row class and the column class. So I can see how all these different cards, as they're called, how they work. I like the rounded edges. I also like the light shadow. So all right, cool. A lot of this stuff, it might even be pulling some stuff from the back end. So we got to think about that, like how much information is being pulled from the back end from the mobile device itself. Maybe we want to pre-render these pages and then send the pre-rendered data first for faster page loads, and then after that, excuse me, then after that we start to do dynamic uploading of certain elements. So that's a big thing. We could see how this looks good here. It's not too bad. I don't think this mimics the processing power of a phone. So, but it does mimic at least the bandwidth, and then adds like a bit of a choke point here. So it takes a little bit longer. So it's yeah, here we go. So slow 3G. We can even do offline, so that's going to be kind of cool. Like we can see how this website works when you take it offline and you say that, maybe you have a script that's running on a regular basis. Um, Maybe you have a script that's running on a regular basis to update certain elements. Maybe you want it to start to check if it's online or not before it does any of those updates or does any further updates. So it waits until you're online again or shows you an error or something like that for a field, like maybe like a banner that goes across the top and says, "Oh, okay, you're offline." So we got to think about things like that. All right, so let's go ahead and turn off our throttling. We can even do an audit, lighthouse. A lighthouse audit those are pretty cool. I've used those to cut down on the size of some of my images. Maybe even you can even have different images load at different sizes if you wanted to. You can have scope code that does that, or if you detect that it's a mobile device, you send a very cut down version of this image that's a lot smaller, even though it'll look fuzzy, but it'll be a lot faster on page load. Most of the stuff I'll be doing is it'll probably be on my local server here in the house, and then I'll probably eventually put it on like an actual web server over time once like everything I feel looks good on it. All right, so let's go ahead and get out of mobile. And let's it's taking its sweet time to put everything there. You go. But yeah, then we can look at this how it looks at the different sizes. As I said, maybe we want to let's go to elements here. Oh, why is this thing acting? It's still acting slow. I think I turned off throttling. So network, yeah, no throttling. I usually disable caching. Okay. What I need to do? All right, so I want to look at this element here, and I will inspect this. And what I'll do even nav wrapper, nav bar collapsed. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So something like this. So as I was talking, let me go ahead and detach this. One thing I was talking about earlier is having a special view for a kind of like a DEFCON 5, like for instance, you just have this running all day on a screen, right? And that's kind of how I envision it. So I only need the updates on how my portfolio is doing is in the market. So M1 Finance, once they come out with a read-only API, I gotta research that because I don't think they have one, but I've requested it. And I think other people have as well. I don't even want something that does trades. I don't want to do all that. I don't even want to do trades with coin. I don't want to do like actual program any trades with Coinbase unless it's like, I'm working on I can work with their dev side of things where I can actually execute trades or work as if I'm executing trades, almost like paper trading. But all these different things here, I want these to be updated on a regular basis. Maybe even like, okay, I'll be on another computer putting in this information, and then I'll see it get updated maybe automatically, or like it's like it does it something gets pushed to the front end or something like that. I could do things like that. You could do that in JavaScript. Where as soon as you update an entry, it goes out to the JavaScript and pushes a change or something like that. That's possible. Um, and of course, you could do a regular pull, so you can retrieve this data on a regular interval, like every 5 minutes, maybe every 15 minutes, of course, especially with the Coinbase stuff. So the biggest thing that'll change is mostly the Coinbase stuff and even silver prices. And then I can have it to where, okay, I don't have my Roth IRA and I'm not getting this from M1 Finance, but I know my numbers. I know how many shares I have of something. Then I can actually pull all of those different ticker symbols from an API like not M1 Finance, Yahoo Finance provides. And once I pull that information on the ticker symbol, calculate it against all the entries I have in my own database for any one of these portfolios, then it can actually update for me on a regular basis. So that would be nice. And some of those APIs are actually free, and they allow you to consume quite a bit as an individual user. So you can really just run under the radar, under the free side of things for a long period of time before they actually, like, before you actually have to charge or something like that. But if you're doing like a crap ton of API calls and doing it for other people, yeah, you can't really, you're gonna have to pay. So as I was saying, let's see here. Let's go ahead and get rid of the navigation bar. Let's go ahead and get rid of this navigation bar. And so our body, height, width. So we still have our chat. So maybe what I'll do is take the chat out. So this container here, that's this main container. So I could take the chat out. Don't load that. Don't take that. Like, you can't see it, but there's a chat section that comes out on the side. If I press this button, all this stuff comes out, and I'll be doing some stuff with that. And we could talk about, like, okay, maybe I can have in this, I can have the ticker symbols or the top movers or the latest entries and things like that. If I look at overview, I have a section here for the recent entries, right? So I can have all my recent entries shown here. But then I can have the same thing here with the chat, or I can do something else with the chat where I can say, oh, okay, XLM has done, numbers here recently, and I can see like everything that's going on here, and maybe even have a chart or something like that. But I don't think I'll go crazy like that because that's a lot of processing power, and that's just not necessary for this or for that like functionality or feature. But let's go back into coding or like thinking about, okay, what can we do with a quote unquote functional facade, creating dashboards that we can actually use. And this right here, me doing this, gives me an opportunity to really look at things like, okay, if I press F11, oh, no, sorry, F11 in this window here, and come on, what in the world? This is so weird. I'm sorry. I'm like having a freaking, seems being a pain. Press F11 on the wrong window. And it's like, oh, you know what? You can always just press F11 again, Mike. Yeah, that. Yeah. Sometimes I'm not sure about myself. All right. So take out this check section here, and then now I have the main container. So now I'm seeing with the main container, I have a margin left of 264 pixels. So I can actually get rid of that, and boom. So now I can see that I can have this whole entire page. And let's take out certain elements here. So for instance, all of this here. So right there. So I'll collapse this. And I'm doing this all in the, put it on the screen here. So I'm doing this in the dev tools. So I want to get rid of all of this down here, just so I have no scroll bar at the side. So delete, 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 delete this, delete that. Kind of like that cat meme where it's like, fuck this, fuck that, fuck this. So doing that. And then why is it still scrolling? What is there? No, I can keep that. Oh, there's a break. And there's a div, another break. Okay. So we keep the script tag. All right, cool. So what it is just I have these 3 breaks here. This right here just shows me the IP address and I'm accessing it from. And I can do things like I don't even have to show that in the front end. I probably will take that out. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. So now Yeah, and this is probably what I would have as a on-screen dashboard overview of all my assets just to track everything. And then I can see, oh, okay, well, this is what's going on here. Um, and maybe even have this chart redraw every couple at a set interval as well. And I can actually do things like that. I can just actually rerun the JavaScript code for that. I don't like how this is moving though. Ugh, that sucks. But I won't be looking at this. And what I'll probably do is even have it to where it shows the number, of maybe the highest point if possible. I'm not sure if I can actually do that, but where I don't need to hover over something to actually show these numbers. And that would be going into the AM charts for documentation and seeing how I can actually do that. But yeah, so then, essentially we look at this. This is how we want everything to look. I might do something like look at this and then be like, all right, cool. I like that, but maybe I want to increase the height a little bit. It doesn't do it. It's not doing it live. I have to save it first. Oh, shoot. Nope. That was the wrong element. It is this one here. There we go. Now this should be live. So you should see this as it happens. My computer is like choking on something here. This is crazy. But I would design this for whatever screen I'm using and design this view just for that. Like fit everything in that space. And all I'm trying to do right now is get rid of the scroll bar. All right, cool. So that happens about 625. And I can take some of this text shadow stuff out. It's a nice thing to look at. Maybe even make a dark mode eventually, like maybe this, have all this, all blacked out here and have different different text colors, backgrounds, and all types of stuff. So that's possible. Some of these things already have like dark mode enabled or a dark mode functionality somewhere. So I just have to find it. But yeah, so we're looking at this, and then again, this is all the things that we're thinking. We're just thinking like, okay, we could do this, we could do this. I can actually make this update here. So, anyways, I won't go any further with that. So let's get out of this, and all the changes are not permanent, so we reload. What in the world? You know what? I'm gonna close out of this here, and I'm going to see what happens. Yeah, it's a lot faster. I think with me having DevTools open, I don't think DevTools are slowing it down, but I think there's something that DevTools that I had set up in there, and I probably have to like reset or something like that. All right, so yeah, so and talking about dark mode, so let's go ahead and explore that a little bit before we get to a little bit of coding here. So layouts, so vertical, there we go, boom, dark layout, yeah. So we can see that all I have to do is just add the different CSS for dark layout, and then make the subsequent changes wherever needed. So that's cool. So I can actually have a dark mode. And this dark mode, I can actually have it to where it's like, I can have it as a whole nother page, or I can have it load dynamically. I've seen that happen before, where you can convert to like dark mode version of your page on click, which is freaking sick. So I'll have to, include this as well. Maybe even have it to where it uses JavaScript to add the style sheet call, and then it actually reloads using dark mode. So that'll be kind of cool. But yeah, so I'll definitely keep this in mind to actually put this all together. I'm trying to think of, I don't know, dark CSS. How does this work? So dark layout is useful for those who wants dark. Okay, who want dark mode theme in project. To use dark mode layout. Okay, so this is like, probably poorly written English. I'm not that great with writing English either. There's one of my coworkers who's definitely a grammar Nazi.
Shout out to Damien. But with this, what this really tells me is like a lot of these websites, these things that you see, these all these different what do they call these things again? These different templates, they're written by people overseas. Um, and they'll go through checks, but this is a crap ton of code to go through checks on. But to be very honest, a lot of these people, that's why they're like the people that you get on Fiverr and stuff like that. Those people are very talented, and they write stuff like this, and they just live in this. Like they do some stuff in this, man. All right, so dark CSS. I think you just called dark CSS. I don't think there's brand dark. So navbar dark, brand dark. It doesn't look. Well, let's see here. Let me. Dark. So you add dark CSS. Dark layout. I'm seeing the word dark, but it's not really. That's not too many things that you have to change to get dark. Whoa. Okay, let's do this real quick. All right, so all I have to do is add dark CSS. So on the server, I have usually an area that I call trash, and I store stuff that doesn't get uploaded to the GitHub repo. So there's the fat.js. Let's go here, and then I'll CP to trash, and this is where I keep the actual template file on the dev server itself. No assets, CSS, layouts, dark, and then I'm gonna send that to server view. Public CSS. All right, cool. I usually just dump it in the folder. I don't really go into crazy hierarchies or anything like that. And then let's do nano layouts admin and style CSS. All right, cool. So cut and copy that line. Dark. And there's nothing that changes from the looks of it. There's nothing that changes. Oh, this is noise. So we can even have it to where it's like, okay, after a certain period of time, maybe what you do in low lighting situations or like based on the time of day, you can actually have it automatically change to dark CSS. That'll be kind of cool. I don't know how it works that though. I don't know how it does it. I mean, you just add dark CSS, but like, what makes it like that? Because the nav bar isn't dark, so it just does it. Let's see how it loads. So you have your style CSS and then your dark CSS. And then for the nav bar, we're going to do p-coded nav bar darkness. So it's not that far to go here. Oh, okay. So that's a partial. What is a page? No, that is a partial, and then navigation. And it says, and this is just so we can change this nav bar. Yeah, so we can change this nav bar over here to the dark format. And I don't know, how does this look? No, it doesn't look all too good. I do like the highlighting of this, so that's sick. And we can do this happens because the background is transparent on these, but you can add an actual background and change the opacity when you're writing the code for this. You're doing all the setup work or setup variables and things like that, and variables and functions for AM charts. So it can always have like some type of white background or something like that, or a lighter background so it pops a little bit more. Especially opacity is really like you set it to white and then set the opacity to really low, but at least it has some type of background so it can contrast against. Let's close this here. All right, so yeah, as we were doing here, also this scroll bar, I'll be getting rid of that eventually. I don't like I usually like a minified scroll bar and have it really small so it doesn't show here. This would be good on a touchscreen as well. So like if you have this on a touchscreen, really sick. All right, cool. So yeah, back to work here. Uh, duh, duh, duh. All right, cool. This I need to put it in P-coded navbar. Focus here, Mike. P-coded navbar and add that class. And then there's one other class that I have to do. The brand dark, and then no, I don't have to do anything else. Wait, let's see. Dark. Yeah. Oh, okay. It already did everything. Yeah, that's it. All right, cool. So now the nav bar should be, and we can see like the difference between the two. Like, okay, which one do you like? Wrong one. There we go. What? That's not it. Did I save it? Probably didn't save it. Yep, didn't save it. Weird. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the nav bar, I don't like the dark nav bar. Not at all. Not one bit. So yeah, probably get the nav bar the same color, and it also doesn't change this here at the top either. Maybe even make this a lighter color or something like that. But yeah, I'll probably not do the dark nav bar. Undo. So yeah, I mean, guys, put in the comment section which one you like more. I like the dark mode. I would like the dark mode maybe based on the time of day. Um, uh, and imagine like say dark mode, no other screen elements or anything like that. This would be super nice as a dashboard. In fact, let's go ahead and do that real quick because I just want to see that. All right, so nav bar, delete, the main container, take out the margin left, and then let's get rid of this nav bar. Yeah, this would be sick. This will be sick. Oh crap. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'll probably do something like this. I don't think this will look well. This will look all right during the day too. But as you can see, we can do all types of stuff with our code here. All right, so let's go ahead and revert everything here because I also do like the light color mode or the non-dark mode. All right. I discriminate with my modes. Oh man. All right, so get out of here. Admin. If I wanted to do like in my templating engine, which is handlebars, which I believe is a superset of Mustache templating engine or mustaches. I don't know which way it is, but I can actually just comment things out like that, leave it there, and then it just won't render the page in that way. So I do like this, the way this looks a little bit. Maybe even the dark mode, I would probably have more of a gray mode. Ooh, that'd be nice. So I might, hold on guys. I wanted to move on from this, but I'm just thinking about stuff here. So this dark mode, right? Right click, inspect, and maybe I can have a gray mode. So let's look at, it's not the It's going to be the body, I believe. There we go. All right, so the body, the color is this dark gray here, or this gray. Let's go to, oh, right, you already have it open, color hunt, and let's pick out a nice gray. I like this. Some of the stuff is repetitive though, but I do like this page. So I like the light mode, but I also don't. So I think it's like too bright, right? So I'll do something like this. So I probably like that color a little bit. And this is kind of the nice thing about design is that you can be creative with like when you're doing actual web design and web development, you can be creative with this stuff, like it's really kind of cool. It's like whatever you want. So let's put that there. Okay, it's the softer gray, doesn't really match. We can actually change that so it gets a little bit purple there. Go green. I don't like that too much. Maybe what I want to do is take this, which I don't know what the color is. Body. So this gray here, I do like this. Don't know what that element is. Should be the card body as opposed to row main body. No. Nope. Nope. Right here. I think it's this here. There we go. Background color. I like that. So I use color hunt. In this case, color hunt's not going to work for us in terms of what I'm seeing and my limited design. So I'll look for hex color or color hex, and I'll put in my color code. So that's a bit of a gray, and then I can go to the different tints. So this is the current tint. Maybe I want to go to something like this. Uh, oh, there we go. In fact, let's go ahead and dock this so it'll be a little bit easier to work with. And I can change my nav bar based off of this color too. That might be something I want to do for my dock mode. Let's body. And then the body, we'll give it this. Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, it's not, no, it's okay. It's not great. So I'll probably go with this. Because essentially it's just the same thing. It's just a tint of it. A different tint, so. Come on, there we go. What? Come on, what are you doing? I like this a little bit better. I probably want it a little bit closer to the original tint, but this is not too bad. A little bit brighter. So for me, this is cool. I like this. This is not bad at all. But to be honest, I look at it. Yeah, it's a little bit better than the original, to me at least. But yeah, this is what you can do. All right, so we'll leave that. I won't beat that dead horse. Now let's get into the functional side of all of this. So we're looking at this, and it doesn't look too bad on stream, but let me revert back to what I had before. So let's go to one of our forms, and I'm going to be focusing on the forms first. Usually when I'm even doing web design, I'll do the design, do the mock-up, see how everything looks, where everything lays, see if it all lays properly or in line with what I want in terms of my vision, and then I'll work on data entry. So front-end data entry. So you work on your back end, you do all your checks for your back end to make sure data is coming in the way you want it, and then after that, you start working on your front end and how your front end is going to interact with your back end to enter data. But one thing I want to work on is buttons. So I made this page here. This is a little bit of my design. I cut out everything because I only wanted to focus on just the form. And I'm doing this is my mock-up here of how I want this form to look. So on the left-hand side, which is the first thing that you see because you read left to right, on the left-hand side, I'm seeing add new list, right? Like I want this, and I started to work on how I want this mock-up to be. So I'll probably change the background of this to where to be. Actually, I'll probably change the background of this. This thing here is a form element, which is pretty cool. Let's go here to forms, and then I think it's like form select. In this form select, again, this is why you always keep the original template files. You keep them live on a live web server so that you can always like check these things out and use them. But here I'll go through all of this to be like, okay, I kind of want to do this. So I want a list. As you know, we have our account type list, and that account type list gets converted into a regular expression for validation. But how do we enter all of that, and where are we going to enter all of that? At the beginning, or eventually, what we'll have is a setup script or setup steps that'll be web based. And once you install everything, it'll start asking you questions like, okay, what are your institutions? What are the type of accounts that you want and things like that. And then we'll give you what's called an actual default, right? So it's like, okay, you go through the setup and then you say default everything, right? And then on that default, it'll do everything except for the more particular stuff. Like you don't use M1 Finance, but you use TD or Ameritrade. All right, cool. And I've also been working on, uploading images. So I'll be doing that on the modify accounts form because that will go into, oops, duplicate. That will go into overview here, where we're going to be able to put in these different images and icons and things like that. So, instead of me statically assigning it or statically putting it into the project and you having to reference it and do all types of changes, I'm going to have that be dynamic and actually pull from the database in the back end. So the page will make quite a few API calls in terms of like retrieving what your images will be and then loading all of this content. Sorry, guys. Got some more teeth there. All right, so in this case, list name, and I'll probably put code in to where it's like every time like you actually make a change to this, then it says, oh, okay, the list name has to be, as you're typing, it'll probably say something like list name has to be alphanumeric, so no spaces or anything like that. But you could probably put like maybe a dash, or you have those valid characters. Also, in terms of the list, the actual items in the list, we can do things like, okay, we'll say the list name is account types. Why is this not? Okay, I know what that is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so max length is 10. Actually, we'll just take out the max length. There we go. I got this from that page here in the template, and this has like limits on it. One thing though, okay, it's not doing it. Okay. One thing that they show you here is that you can even have form advance. Is it form advance? So here we go. Yeah. So you can, when you click on this, you'll see that this number shows up, and then you could say, and then it actually shows like where it's 10. I do have to include the proper JavaScript and or CSS to allow this to show up, which is why it doesn't show up on my code. Again, I work with everything stripped down and then add it as I need it or want it. I like to work with things like that. That's why I use like Ubuntu, what's it called, Ubuntu version, Ubuntu minimal, because I can do things like that and cut things down. All right, so working with this, then I can do things like, okay, the mass mutual, right? Now, this is not there. One thing I'm having a problem with is I don't like when I press enter. Okay, it shows that, but then I have to like go click back into it to type again. So I can even do M1 finance. That's not there. So right, so like I can have this, and then it generates the actual drop down for me. And as we can see here, oh man, I almost caught that bug. As you can see here in where's the select? Because these things use like CSS to like do all the changes and such. And man, all these things are like like super cool, and it hides it, so you can see like the select is actually hidden. But essentially, with the select, every time I'm doing something, is actually adding something here. So that's pretty cool. And then I can even do like TD Ameritrade. And by you first defining all your lists, then you could start putting in your different accounts and modifying your accounts based off of all those different lists that you're actually putting in. So I can put in a list for account type, and then I can have all of that information over here, working with the feather icons here in terms of adding icons to it. So for instance, here, I can do my feather icon, and then I can do this and call it, let's go to feather icon. And I did the one for list. Let's do for trash. So I like trash too, personally. So I'll do icon list trash two. Cool. And then in this is like text C for color. And then I'll take that and turn it to red. All right, so now I know I can actually delete this. And one thing we'll do is I might be what I might do is have certain lists that you cannot erase from the front end. So really, it's kind of one of those like doing it to unfuck yourself, or to like to keep you from fucking yourself, and to keep me from writing code that has to unfuck you. Like you have to write code so it doesn't, so people don't fuck themselves. Why would you allow me to delete the list? This causes this problem, so on and so forth. Because when you delete that list, those lists actually have to resolve to certain like, account type UUIDs and stuff like that. So you can't delete this list. And then maybe I'll have a check. It's like, okay, you're using this, right? Do you want to rename this? Something like that. Maybe you want to rename these different account types or something, like have things like that. And then also this helps me with designing the back end. Maybe I shouldn't have how do I resolve names, and what UUID do I do my name resolution on? So I might have an entry UUID. Okay, well that's cool. That doesn't really need to resolve to anything particular. In particular, that's just the entry. You just search for it. But for instance, if I want to look up an account, well that account has a UUID, and if that account gets deleted, then how do I remap that? Like remap that to an actual name. Things like that is what you got to think about. So like I have an account ID of a UUID of 1234, and then I delete the name for that or rename it or something like that. Okay, if I rename it, that's fine. But if I totally delete it and then 1234, I have all these entries for 1234. Now I have to do something where in my code, it's like if I can't find the proper name for this, then what I need to do is go ahead and just mark it as unknown, or deleted account, like deleted account reference or something like that. It'll still have the UUID. I can always put it in on the back end or something like that for unmapped accounts, but then I can go from there. So that's always a nice thing to have. And then I can, do things with this to actually remove the element and stuff like that. All right, so let's go ahead and actually do some coding here. So we'll do like a quick thing here in like in terms of our buttons. So I have these different buttons here. You're supposed to do stuff. One thing that's also nice, and a friend taught me this a long time ago, is like even though this like might be an image or something like that, it might not be. It might not use an A tag or ahref for like a link or anything like that, and it might not be something that inherently makes the cursor change. So as humans, we know our cursor and like what fields do because of the cursor that we use, whether we realize it or not. It's just kind of one of those things that is in our subconscious. if I have my cursor changed to this, as I hover over a section, this pointer means I could point to different things, right? I can point to this, but as soon as I hover over something that is a link, I know it's a link because now it has changed to the actual hand symbol or hand pointer. And now I know I can actually click on that and do whatever I need to. But when I go over a text field, this is what happens. Excuse me. You can change that functionality in CSS by defining a different type of pointer. So if I wanted to, and I think it's like cursor, and then cursor, and then I can do crosshair, right? So over this, I can actually have the crosshair cursor. Right, so you can do things like that to where if you have the crosshair cursor, like, it doesn't make sense here, but maybe on a div or something like that, you can actually change the cursor in CSS to where it actually changes what it does. So here, if I right click on this, somewhere in all of this, it changes the cursor accordingly. Yeah, cursor pointer, right? So button, not disabled, disabled, things like that, all that stuff, I can actually change what that does in CSS. Because by default, it always looks like this. Like even if I go see if with this text box what the cursor does. So actually, no. Yeah, cursor crosshair, but there's something. Yeah, cursor text. So, anyways. So yeah, that's something that you can do, and that's something that you want to actually keep in mind keep in mind. Also, you can see here I've been playing around with the UI in terms of where I want certain things, and going from there. Excuse me. Going from here, like having the button up here, or do I want it down here? And how does that work in terms of functionality? Like, all right, cool. I can have this here, and changing the spacing. Like, I want to probably have this all the way to the right. Make sure my padding looks good. So let's code up this button here. We'll do that in the actual backend here. So this plus button, I'll just do a quick thing here. I won't do anything like crazy because I'm still working on, I don't want to go crazy in on this, but I'm just still working on what I want, how I want this to look, and then thinking about functionality before I really dive into making some of these pages functional. And one of the first things I'll do is actually work on my form entries or my entry forms. So we're in our admin layout, and I don't need anything here. I need to nano. This is my modified list page. So it's a form, and I'm just prepending all my forms, even though it doesn't say it in the actual URL. I'm just sending all my forms or prepending all my forms in the backend with the word form in the file name. So I'll do nano here. And then let's go ahead and take a look at these are buttons. So on the button tag itself for this is the right button because it's a plus circle. All right. And so this one will do an on click. It's probably one of probably one of the easier ones to do. And then in this we'll do we can just do a simple alert if we wanted to. We don't even have to do anything on the back end. Alert and said button has been clicked. All right, and then we can do more advanced functions as well, to where we're making this do other things, right? Like it's adding whole other sections here to this page, and then reproducing some HTML or injecting HTML into a div. As you'll see here. Oh, no, I probably didn't put it in yet. I've made insertion points in different parts. Here we go. Actually, I did do it. Oh, and I did it wrong. So I have add new list div. So it's right above this here. So when you want to add a new list, it will add it to this actual div. So that's something I'm actually going to be working on in terms of how I want that to, how I want that, like what is the base code in there, and then also what is, or how do I handle pushing things into that div, and even removing things from that div as well, because I can actually give them numbers for their ID, and then increment those as I go along, and then that also makes it easier. I'll program like the buttons that are associated with that div to make them function only for that div or properly with that div, even doing things like removing certain items and things like that. So add list. So let's go ahead and do that and then click on it. Oh, okay. So I'm having a problem here. Did I saved it right? And then the button on click alert button has been clicked. And that should be good. It's encapsulated there. All right, so let's go to our console. Then we can see console here and see what didn't happen. Sometimes what I have to do is Control F5, picks up the new code. No, that's not the case here. Also, it's nice to see here that how everything is laid out. So I kind of like this. Not too bad. It's okay. Also, you can see here it's still trying to put all these different graphs in place. So I have to do something to where only those graphs only show when it's showing the um, when it's on / only. So like the URL or the path of the URL is / only, the main page, or maybe / overview or something like that. All right, so what did I do wrong here to where this is not working properly? So alert. Can even have it do. No, console log should work, right? All right, so. Oh, I know why. I'm clicking on the wrong button. Yeah, I was clicking on the wrong button. Oh god. Yeah, I used that. And again, this is like me doing all the design work, but I was just clicking on the wrong button. So fooled you guys. You guys should have known that. So yeah, there you go. Button has been clicked. So those are the things that you can do here in terms of like working with JavaScript, front end JavaScript. Again, it's really just scratching the surface, and this is not even anything special. So let's do something. Let's make this plus button here read this element here, because I want to see how this actually looks, because this has been kind of like, in a sense, not bothering me, but it's been something I want to explore. All right. Okay. So that element is the input. No, that element is the plus sign here. And then we're going to do an on click. You can have this stuff like where it automatically gets checked. You just have a function running at page load and do a set interval or a set timeout that runs after page load is done. And then that monitors things. I usually do a set interval, of course, for monitoring certain input or certain input fields and things like that. Complex, what's up, man? Appreciate you showing up to the stream, bro. Hope everything's going good with you guys over there at Black Brain Trust, man. Black Brain Trust, guys, is definitely a channel that you guys want to check out, where they talk about like current events and things like that, and even more, and getting into things that are a little bit more on the nerdy side for Black guys. So it's definitely something for the brain candy, if you will, for sure. So let's go ahead and make this functional here. So I want to click on this button, and then it gives me all the items here, and I just want this to console log. So I'll do, I'll call this function test button, takes no items, and this for this select here, I want it to, I'm going to select this select. So I'll give it ID. Oh man, hey man, Black Brain Trust, bro. I really complex design. I appreciate you sharing the content, man. That's always good, man. That's freaking awesome. Thank you guys so much. It's an honor, man. All right, so we'll go ahead and change this ID here, and we'll say list select 0 or something like that. Maybe even a -0. And like we can increment this number in JavaScript in the back end when we inject the code. So then let's change that. And what we'll do, we'll just always reference that. So for now, so if I go server view public JS, and then I'll do fat.js. So in this one, this is my main JS here. I'll write a function that says test button. So give it the function keyword. Function. No worries from Complex. Yeah, appreciate it, bro. We definitely have to give our brothers content that is actionable intel, things that they can actually use. So actually, we'll give the div ID here as a parameter, and we'll pass this div name to our button here to be more specific. So this we'll pass it as a string, right? And then on our back end, we'll do let select div equal document get element by ID, and then that's a function. So takes a parameter, which is a string. Actually, in this case, since it's a string, we're going to pass div ID. We can do other things to check this, but I usually don't check a lot with functions like these, like because I'm putting in the data. So if somebody tries to pass bad data, they're just freaking doing stupid shit. It's just like whatever, So I don't really check that so much. So selective, and then what we want to do is selective. We'll do, I think with the selectives, we can actually get the full value of everything in there. So no, we can get the value, but we want to get all of the options in that div. So let's just go ahead and console.log, and see what that what that element's going to give us at the time, and then we can actually go through and possibly access all the options within it, because we want to take all those options and funnel those into an array, and then output that array and send it to the back end, or make a JSON object that has all of that information. We can even do selective and then input div. So the div ID, yeah, we'll just do 2. So div ID, and we'll just do input div ID, because I don't want to have to rechange. I don't have to change this again. And so div ID, input div ID, selective, and then we'll also output the input div, and that'll give us all the information there. And then we're going to actually, let's console log a JSON object. So we'll say obj. That's what I usually use as my shorthand for object, right? And then here, and then so this is a list that we got to pass to the back end, right? So we'll do input div dot value, and that should be the value of that div. Oh no, we can't do that in a JSON object. That wouldn't be valid. We can do that though. Let's double up on that. Selective, and we'll do list items. I forgot what we named it in our backend and by our API. We can find out for Postman, but it's not necessary right now. It's not really doing this seriously. We're just kind of like seeing how we would break this down. Even when I'm doing this, I'm thinking like, okay, looking at this, I don't like the spacing. Then once I get this information, like, okay, I need to go through all the options and then cycle through those options, possibly, because it might give me a node list of some sort, and a node list you can treat like an array. And then for this, I'll have name. So whatever the input div is, I'll have the name of that. So let's give an ID to this. So ID equals input -0, right? And we'll key all of this to this button. So you also have to think like you're going to be doing this to like how many items? You know, like you're going to have to make it to where this stuff is programmed in, or you're going to have to like make it to where it's dynamic, right? So I'll input, so that input 0. Also, I have to be wary of the fact that I have this input div and div ID. I have them in a certain order, right? So I have to change that order now because it's expecting that. This is why I also like to use, it's a little bit more flexible when you use JSON objects. So you can pass this whole thing a JSON object, and when you pass it a JSON object, it can you can break it down however you like, and it'll be a little bit more flexible because in that JSON object you pass other functions, so you don't have like parameter. You can have like a big JSON object with all of that, and it also is cleaner code. So, and then the order doesn't matter either because you just pass it the object and then parse the object accordingly within the actual function itself. Or not parse, but split and do whatever you need to. So I have input div, selective, and I have that value. I don't want the value of selective because you'll see what I mean here in a second. Because in that select, it should give us quite a bit there. So now that's broken down, and I will call my object instead in terms of console log. All right, so let's refresh the page. I usually do a control F5, and that should download everything over again. Use a little bit more bandwidth, but who cares? It's the VM on the actual computer itself, so I'm straight. So I'll click here, and there we go. So I can see my name is nothing, and my list items is null. All right, cool. So my name, let's do it again. Oh, I'm not getting anything for my name. What in the world? What the deuce? So input div. Oh, I didn't save anything. All right, so boom. All right, great. So now I'm seeing this is selective. It's giving me the entire HTML, or it's giving me the entire element, I should say. So that element itself, I'm seeing everything within it. I can see all the different values that it has that I can access. And what I can do here is now I can see I don't have the name though. It's still not giving me the name. So input 0, ID equals input 0. And that is not, maybe I'm not accessing the right value for that. So this is where it gets kind of tedious because you're going through this and you're like, oh God, now I got to do this, and this, like you got to refresh this page like 100 times just to check the functionality of one thing. So you're getting the entire item. In this case, it gives you as a JSON object, and then I can scroll through. How did I not access this properly? I thought it was .value, so let's go down to Where's V at? P. Doop. Value, yeah. So it's getting value. I'm asking for value here. So list div get element by ID, and then I do dot value, and let's get that again. Nope. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then for this, let's start putting in information here. Right. Enter. And I probably I'm gonna do something to get rid of that. I'm not sure what I can do. And then let's go here. But it's not something that's causing error, and it's something in our vendor.all. And something like this could be just like this scripted, that code is old or something like that, or it's referencing something that it usually has, but now it doesn't, because I did things a little bit different, and I didn't include everything. Okay, so inner HTML. Okay, so everything, the inner text, I can do the inner text here. So option, value, data select. So that's the inner HTML, but I want a better way of accessing that, or these values. I mean, if this is it. I can work with this. But we can see like it has a new line character. Like, can I get these as separate items, separate entities? I've worked with selects, but I haven't worked with um, what's it called? This select, which is, it uses this select2 JavaScript front end library. So I've never used this one, but for instance, I think it should be under O for options. So I should be able to see or access all of the options. OP. Here we go. So yeah, I should be able to get to all the different options as, yeah, it looks like an array. So that's cool. And then those options should have values. So what we'll do is I can actually go through, and then I can do options, and yeah. So then with those options, then I can cut down on that. And console. And then type here, type. See, I want to be able to do a space. I can't type again. I hate this. I gotta find something with that on this front end library. Maybe there's something I'm not referencing in terms of the code, or in terms of what this library can do and the options for that, for the element. So it's a new library for me. I just implemented it today, earlier today. All right, so I have those three things. Let's do that. And this is list item collections, HTML options collection, and then I can get the value. So let's go ahead and go down to value here. Yeah, value. So I can get the value for each one of these. So if I wanted to reference the first one, I can just do 0. And then actually no, 0 and then dot value. Right. And then refresh. You'll get used to refreshing, guys. All right, and then here, boom. So now we can see that list items, I have this. So now let's go ahead and go a little bit further, right? So now I have list items. Let's do an empty array. No, actually, we don't have to do an empty array. We can, no, we don't have to do that even. We can do, boom, do an empty array here. So we don't have to define a new one, but we will reference this. And what we'll do is we'll have selective dot, oh, got rid of that. So we'll have this here, replay that. Selective dot options. So options is pretty much an array. So, or you'll even have items such as like node, what they call node lists. And with those node lists, those are actually what's it called? Oh man, thanks for the 9 likes, guys. Do appreciate that. For the 1 dislike, oh, I appreciate that too, man. Thanks for even dropping in. Appreciate everybody, really do. All right, so for now, what we'll do is we'll do a for each function on that, and with the for each function, that takes a function itself, or it's a high level function or considered a high order function. So we'll do that, and then we can run this as a function. So, oh, did that wrong. So I have selective. I pass like on click. I have an on click for this button here, right? That on click triggers this function, which is test button. Test button takes in 2 items. Takes in the input div and then the div ID, or the input div ID and the div ID. So I can actually make that a better name that something better. But as you saw, like earlier on with the iteration of the, or earlier on when doing all this code, that when we were doing this code, that we only had one parameter, so it was kind of like somewhat self-explanatory, if you will, or there was only one parameter to worry about. But this is, we're just making general code that's somewhat repeatable, and we could just pass parameters, it processes it, and then spits out whatever result that you want in whatever format that you want. So that's why we have it like that. So, but this gets assigned to a value selective. That's a little bit more descriptive, right? But with the for each function, it takes like, I think 3 options or parameters. You can look this up on the Mozilla documentation website. So you can do element, or E, as I like to do the shorthand for, and index. There is also an option called this array. So that's another one that you can actually pass the array that you're actually working on. So the array as it is at the time. So in this case, I keep track of the index, because then I can run things like, okay, at the end of all of this, go ahead and run this on the last run of this actual the last run of this loop, because essentially it's going to loop through each one of these elements. Now we can do a for loop and actually do all of this, but in this case, what we're really going to be focusing on is just doing a for each, and then that for each is going to push everything into the list items object, or list items value for the key, the value for list items key. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and program that up. So we'll do um, hmm, Jesus, this dang bug, man. Ah, summer. It's gonna be summertime pretty soon, man, and oof, the bugs is out. Finally got my lawn cut though. That was really cool. It's good. Is worth the $450. I got like 7 acres here, or the 7 acres of cut grass. Got 18 acres total, but like, Jesus, that stuff was looking rough. It was kind of looking like me. It was really young grizzly. My lawn was young grizzly at the one point too. So that was pretty bad. But I'll probably put a video up on that in like a before and after or something like that. But yeah, that lawn is looking a lot better now. All right, cool. So let's write code. Sorry about that, guys. All right. We are going to do a push. So if we wanted to push something, we can do the dot push function in JavaScript. And then when you do a dot push, you just give the value of what you want to push onto an array. So there's quite a few different helper functions for arrays, like, because you use arrays a lot. Arrays and objects, arrays and objects, arrays and objects. Like, those are the big things. Once you learn those as your low-level data structures, you have your variables for your strings, you have your objects, so you can actually have a mix of strings, variables, and even functions. And then, because I usually like to pass like a callback function as an item in oh yeah, that bug got zapped. All right, so I usually like to, I'll do stuff like this. I might even pass like an anonymous function, and then do some stuff in there, right? Like, I can go ahead and do all that stuff and pass that as a function in a for a JavaScript item. Excuse me, guys. All right. Also, that wasn't valid JavaScript, and why it wasn't valid JavaScript? Because we didn't have that comma there. That would have screwed us over right there. Let's undo all of this. All right, cool. So yeah, but with arrays, you can actually do dot push, which means add to an array. You can do dot pop, which means takes an item off of an array, and then you can do things like shift as well and things like that. And you could actually target certain items within the array itself. So in this case, it's gonna iterate through every element or every item in that array, and I want to pull certain things out, and then I can reference it as e dot whatever, right? So that's that item. So I can do e dot uh, whatever that item is for each. If I look at the structure, oh, I don't have the structure up anymore. So let's just do it off of memory here. If I'm in an array, that option, like we're cycling through our options are sub those options have sub values to them. One of the values is value. So I want to do e dot value, right? And I want to push that on my object right here that I've defined already in my using my let variable or let keyword, and I'll do list items dot push, and then I'll push that onto that array. Yeah, that should be it. And then that's all I need. And then after that, it'll run through this first and then run through this. So backend JavaScript using Node.js, when you're using Node.js, that backend JavaScript is mainly that backend JavaScript is run asynchronously. So like your Node.js and things like that, your Node.js runtime event loop. And then front end JavaScript is run synchronously. So it's going to run everything in order. But you can do a wait. What's it called? You can do, what do they call those things again? You can do async awaits if you wanted to as well, and have everything run in an asynchronous fashion. But it's going to run through all of it, your code from top to bottom. Um, they all kind of do that, but it's just usually what happens is some functions will just run first and then run the next thing. So in this case, I should be able to do my console log after this runs here. All right, but let's test that and make sure. Otherwise, I'll put my console log in here and I'll show you how to have it run as the last on the last iteration. And it's just an if statement. All right, cool. Enough talk. Refresh. So now, again, we enter some stuff, right? Boom. So, oh, okay, cool. So it's an array, it has two items. Those two items are the items that I have here. So if I wanted to, I can actually do GGG. I can select it or just press enter. And then I can run this again. Now it's an array of three items. Boom. And now I can see that I have all three of those items because I referenced everything accordingly. Now, if I wanted to have all this code, if it's like running asynchronously, and then, maybe I had like a return statement, then it returned it before it could even console log or anything like that, then I would probably put an if conditional in here, and then I would do select options, right? Because that options is an array, and then I'll do -1 because with arrays, they start counting at 0. And my I equals I, because if I do equals, that's comparison. And then I compare that to I itself. Then I can do the shorthand way instead of writing the curly braces and doing all the spacing. I can actually just do this stuff. Ooh, there you go. I can actually do this here, and that'll be valid. So this way, I, this technique here is called guarding. It's really good for errors. So like if it matches this condition or something like that, whether it's an inverse or like it's the condition or it's the inverse of that condition, then it will just run this and then go from there. So I can even have a return, like return console or whatever, and then that'll be fine. So let's go ahead and get rid of that, and then let's go ahead and run this. See what we get. So we'll do it. Oh, why is it not running? Wait. Weird. Also, I noticed This. Oh, that happens on scroll. Also, what I notice here is besides it having, oh yeah. Well, also what I notice is I'm missing my buttons up here, so that's a problem. I don't see any errors with loading. These are all things that are happening in the browser itself, where the browser is giving me warnings. Yeah, it's just okay. I'm not sure why that's doing that, but it's not even running the if I equals selective.options. Ah, it will never run that. You know why? Because I didn't use the helper function .length. So if I wanted to get the length of a string or the length of an array, I have to use .length. And it has nothing to actually write this value to, so it won't know what to do, and which is why it won't give me anything. All right, cool. Actually, we can erase all that, and then it should give me something. Oh, yeah, still won't give me anything. And the reason why it won't give me anything because there's nothing in there. Or because it just doesn't like me and I wrote something wrong. Dot length, selective, dot options, dot length. I don't have to add that. Equals I, console log. Yeah, what I noticed is when I actually I scroll or I move this window like this, I'm losing my buttons up here. So there's something in there that makes me lose those buttons. That's my CSS. But focus, Michael. Focus on the task at hand. Huh. It's my if conditional. Test. I'll just run like a string. Yeah, I'll have a console log a string here. Unexpected string. Oh. Yeah, no, that's not working. I'm not sure why that's not working. So in that case, what I'll do is I'll test my conditions. So when things like this happen, and this is why I do like to do the live coding or get some live coding in, one test is, hey guys, quick question. How you spell the word length? Is it with a G or without? Because from the looks of it, I have it without. So first I didn't have length, and then I didn't spell length properly. All right, cool. So let's do this, and then it should work. No, still doesn't work. What the fudge? Length. So as I said before, we'll just test our conditions here. And it's possible that it's not doing it. Yeah, okay, that's why. So it wasn't doing it because there is no, there's nothing in there. Also, one of the things, it won't, I will not equal length, the length of this array. If the array is already 0 and then I subtract 1, then that is -1. So it won't run because there's nothing in there. So maybe I can even have, can I have another condition in there? So if length equals 0, and you can actually make this a little bit prettier by putting it on the actual page. So you can make it a little bit prettier by putting it here somewhere or having a nice, a better alerting system, if you will. But I'll use the alert, the built-in alert function, and then say, bruh. That's empty. So we do have a problem here because now I have a single quote here, and that is messing up everything here. So I'll put that there, and then I can escape it. So if I have like a single quote and I'm wrapping this in single quotes, or I can just wrap it in double quotes and it'll be okay. Um, like this, and then still have single quotes in there. That's one way of doing it. Or or I can just escape the single quote with a backslash. And you can do that with other special characters as well, so it doesn't mess up your formatting, or you can keep on using your single quotes versus your double quotes and things like that. Or we can use template literals if we need to, which is the backticks. So if length equals 0, so alert that, right? So let's go ahead and what did I just do? Well, that was weird. It's probably just issues with the server itself, this VM. Hyper-V is okay, but it's just not working too well on my computer. I've never had these problems with Hyper-V. So this should do something, but it's not doing it. So if length, let's do this. Do it as the first thing. If length 0. So something like this, just to guard against any bad conditions, I'll actually do the usual way of writing an if statement and then do an if else for chaining so that it has to pass that condition for it to get to the next step. So something like this, I'll do things like that. Oh man, this whole time, guys, I'm sorry about that. Let me increase the font there for y'all that are watching. And actually, let's go ahead and do this so you can see everything. So, you've seen that we're building it out a little bit more in terms of we're running into problems and running into bad spelling. So as we're running into these things, we can build up the function. What you'll notice also is that a lot of this stuff doesn't start off as like huge lines of code or anything else like that. It starts off as small functions, and then as you work the function out and deal with different edge cases, then it starts to grow in terms of what things can and cannot do and the problems that you're facing. Don't expect to have everything right the first time. Never try to go for absolute perfection on the first iteration. Always work, get your base level, get your your MVP up, or no, MVC up. So your MVP, minimal viable product. Yeah, there's MVC in it. Oh yeah, MVC is the other thing. Model view controller, which we went over, I think about 2 streams ago. We went over the model view controller programming pattern or design pattern. But you get your MVP up, your minimal viable product. So it's like, okay, get it to work, get something that we can actually look at and get it in front of people that maybe maybe it's somebody, an investor of some sort, and you want to get something up and you want to show them some functionality. Maybe this investor has a tech guy that actually looks at things with them, and you're going to have to do a little bit more than have a pretty website. Now you're going to have a website that functions and does all types of stuff. So as you can see, we start with a small little bit. This was just like, just getting the information from selective and then consoling that out. We added an object so we can actually structure this data, quote unquote, a little bit better. Then we started to loop through arrays of values so we can actually get that. Now we're adding things like, okay, well, if the length of that array is 0, then we need to say, hey, bruh, there's a problem. If it's not, or there's an else, or if it doesn't match this condition, then go here and do this, and then actually execute our code. So let's go ahead and do that. It's still not working. So my thought is it's not running this at all. So what we might want to do, we run this before. And what I'll do is a multi-line. So like that code is messed up, right? Like I want to go back to it just in case, but I don't want to maybe fix it right now. So I'll do a multi-line comment here. You can do that in JavaScript, which is really nice. So it's just /* and then you end it, or the end that code block, or the block that you want to take out of your code and not execute, you end it with a asterisk /. So once that's done, now I can do. Oh, I should need to add this here. So take this out and I'll put it back right here, and then I'll end off my if statement here, and I'll fix all that later in terms of formatting. So all right, bro, that is empty. So my thought is the for each is not running because it's an empty array. Now, if that array had something in it, then it would go from there. So I don't even have to actually have a guard here for anything. I don't have to actually have a guard for that. But maybe I have a guard here, or I had not a guard, but I'll have a if statement of some sort here that says, okay, if that is this, then I can do my else. So let's get our else back in there, and let's run this. And this will be the last thing we run. Then I got to go do my little workout. Okay. All right. So if else, and then I'm going to encapsulate that into, oh, shoot. There we go. And yeah, there are better IDEs. I can use Visual Studio Code and stuff like that to write this, and I'll automate some of those things that I just did in terms of my indentation. So I don't usually use Visual Studio Code. That's not my thing. I personally like to do. Oh, I don't need this actually. Crap. Crap. There we go. Sorry about that. I don't usually like to use Visual Studio Code myself. It's just not what I'm used to. And connecting with remote servers and stuff like that, it is pretty good with that. So I can't say that it doesn't do that. So this will only run if that is an issue. So I don't want to have to do anything for that alert to stop me from doing anything or stop me from clicking. So I'll just use console.log instead, and that'll log out here into our console. If you do console.log into backend code, it'll run in the process itself, whatever's logging the process. I use PM2, Process Manager 2. And PM2, what it'll actually do, it'll load, you can actually do PM2 logs, and then you can see everything. In fact, we can do that here. If I did console log in any bit of my backend code, you can see where I can actually, it'll console log out into this, but this is all front end here, so. All right, cool. So that's good enough talking. Let's go ahead and refresh. I always do Control F5 for my refreshes just so I can download that new code. All right, bro, that's empty. So then here, and then boom, and then it runs test. And what that shows me is that now that I have my conditions right, now I can actually get to the code that I want it to run. Control F5, download new code. Bro, that's empty. Give my list. I can even have checks to make sure that you're putting something in the input box there as well. So it won't even run, or it'll alert you accordingly. And then boom. So now I have a JSON object that has the list name, and then the list item is this. Sweet, right? So then I can even add other things to that and then run it again. And I mean, this button could be a plus, this button could be a submit, and you could see how we're actually going through our front end and everything else like that. But yeah, it's just pretty cool. Now what I can do is, like, once I have things like this out of the way, and you guys see that, hey, okay, I screwed up on something, and then just going through, figuring it out, breaking it down, breaking it into pieces, seeing what works and what doesn't work. This is what I actually did with Mr. Richard Dixon the other day, or a couple streams ago. It's like the 3-hour live stream. And in the last hour, I was just working through his code, or walking through his code, and then we actually just broke it down to to some of the conditionals. Okay, how does this condition work? And then we found out he was doing type conditioning, or type comparison as well. So he was comparing a number to a string, which is a string of a number. So he was comparing the number 100 to a double quoted 100, which will be actually equates to a string. It's just JavaScript will actually find a way to, I think they call it coalescing, or they'll massage it, is a dumber way of saying that, because I'm not sure what the right word is. but it'll massage that string of a number 100 to an actual number, and then that's how it works. But that only works on double equal. If you're doing a type comparison as well as a value comparison, it will not work. So we broke those things down, and then we found like, okay, what worked, and then we looked at what didn't work, and that gives us a way of like breaking these things down into pieces. um but at the end of the day, so we're doing all of this just so we can have our entry form. We'll do add in all our pre-checks and everything. So then it will drive everything on our front end. So like we can actually get this to actually work, enter in all this data. We can really start from scratch with all these different cards up here and everything like that. Maybe even add options to what cards show and make that more dynamic to where it's not statically assigned here. A lot of front end code in terms of the JavaScript rendering that. We may even do things like rendering it in the back end, and then sending all the information to the front end, and it pushes whatever it needs to. So those are things that we can all do when we're actually coding these type of projects and moving through them. For me, what I'll first do is, again, starting with an MVP, is get all these little pieces working, and then start adding more features and functionality to say, okay, I only want two of these, or I only want three of these, or maybe I want five of these, and like have these different sections in terms of the cards that are available, and then render them accordingly, right? Like, okay, maybe I have a form where I can have, or maybe even instead of forms I have like designer or something like that. So that might be under the settings section where I design, where I can allow users that use this platform or anybody that downloads this code, which is on my GitHub. You guys go ahead and visit my TreeStar Systems GitHub. So that is github.com/treestarsystems. I do have an actual gist up there too. So I have some gists. If you've ever, if you guys ever use ClickUp or anything like that, I've actually gone ahead and put out some of the code that I've worked with in terms of ClickUp, and you guys can actually use that code if you wanted to. So I've made that open source for some of the functions that I've done. In fact, there's some more functions that I need to put in there that I've added recently for the project. This is an object, like a task validation. So I've added a lot of code for that, which is pretty cool. So that's like a little bit of a preprocessor for an object so that it can actually validate all the inputs and everything like that, and then exporting all of that stuff. So that's written for Node.js. Probably should be a little bit more descriptive in that stuff, I think. Yeah, I probably should be like, okay, written for Node.js or something like that. But I think you can kind of see it. But yeah, I probably should have put that there. But yeah, go ahead and look at TreeStar Systems or github.com/TreeStar Systems, and go ahead and follow. And for those that have followed, I really do appreciate you. As you can see here, who's my followers? Uh, Here I need no. Mhm. Feature. Oh, there we go. Ah, 4 followers. So I want to shout out. This is Gabe A and Daniel Tucker, Richard Dixon. Appreciate you guys for following me. I need more followers. Followers make me feel important. But yeah, I really do appreciate the guys that do actually show up and show up to the streams, and then also do follow on the different platforms. I really only do YouTube. I don't really do any other platforms. YouTube is my platform of choice for social media and information and education, and also expressing myself in so many different ways. But yeah, that's pretty much it for tonight, guys. We went through quite a few things in terms of the design side of things, and also going into things about talking about making these designs a little bit more functional, and walking through it to where we can actually see all this stuff and be like, oh, okay, this is what this does, this is what that does. Okay, this is code that I've written that's not working properly. All right, cool, I got to refresh the page to get that to work again. It's like going through all of that and testing all the different iterations and finding ways to break your problem down. Like, okay, the problem I have with this is when I press maximize, I want it to resize to the new resize to the new the new div size. It's like, okay, well, how do I do that? And breaking those problems down, going from there. But as always, guys, thank you very much for listening. I do hope you guys got some what's it called? I do hope you guys got some good information out of this. And if you have anything or any questions that you want to ask, go ahead and put them down in the comment section below. Appreciate you as always. Peace.